What's up, everyone? Episode 2, Coingler series. Last episode you saw was episode 1. I answered a question on one of my comments. You know, he was asking about when is the right time to move from the Coingler to the boater position, and so I was answering his question the best way I knew how. Now we're going to get into another one. This is one that's I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be very, very helpful, guys. So let's jump on in. Hey, if you're new to my channel, my name's Todd Castleline. I fished a bunch of these events. I said it on episode 1 that I fished at least like 150 of these. I forgot a lot of these were 2-day events. So I said I'd had at least 150 Coinglers. Guaranteed it's well over 200. I've seen and heard a lot of the frustrations and the talks from both sides. So I'm going to try to limit most of the sides from the boater side. I'm really going to talk more about the Coingler side of it and what I've heard from it. So that's where I'm going to go. When I bring up some of the boater side, this isn't necessarily always my opinion. It is, but it's a lot of us that talk about it. I mean, guys, I'm sure y'all are the same way. If you're watching this and are a Coingler, we have these same talks about the same things. So I've heard frustrations from both sides. So, but let's jump on in, okay? This one is called Expectations and Frustrations, okay? I'm going to start with expectations because I think expectations will limit the frustrations, okay? Expectations, you have to, guys going into these events, the expectations from Coinglers are all over the board, all over it. It is amazing to listen to what I hear. So I'm not going to get into all of them, but I'm going to cover I'm just going to, off the top of my head, I can tell you like the couple of them, okay? There's the guys out there that are really, really wanting to win. Like they're not trying to learn anything. They're not trying to do anything. They are wanting to go out there and win on the Coingler side and just fish. No problem with that. You got other guys out there that are totally wanting to just use it as an experience, to learn things from their pros, to sometimes learn the lake, learn other ways to catch fish. Maybe they fished a lot of team stuff back home, or they just want to catch fish. So those are two different expectations. You got other guys that are just out there just to kind of hang out on the weekends. They get kind of drug along with their buddies. I don't know how many times I hear like, hey, this is my first tournament ever. I'm just out here to, you know, catch some fish. Some of these guys are retired. You got the guys that are the high school kids to college kids. They're just trying to get experience. They don't even own a boat. So you've got all these different expectations of why a Coingler is back there. And so their viewpoint on what they're going to do that day is way different. Now, I bring that up because what you've got to understand is your expectations and maybe your boater's expectations are two totally different things. And it's hard for me to understand, kind of, unless you tell me what you're really going after. I've had so many guys sit there and say, you know, maybe they didn't catch them that day, and I'm like, hey man, I wish it had gone better. And they're like, oh my gosh, I learned more with you than I've ever done on any other guide trip. And they didn't really catch them, but they're so excited after the day that they learned a bunch. I've had other guys that absolutely could care less what I've done, that I fished a whole different way. I know sight fishing, for example, the deal on Grand, my Coingler didn't catch him very well. He was a young kid, but we talked all day long. I told him about sight fishing and what he could do, and he said he was so excited to go out there and do that. I've had other guys where I was sight fishing where they just sat in the boat and basically went to sleep. Why they went to sleep, I don't know, because they just thought that they weren't going to catch them, which blows me away. But his expectation of what he wanted to do that day was different than mine. And what's funny is the guy that probably got the most mad at me for sight fishing was threw me off so much, because on day 2 my Coingler had actually led the event. He actually brought in the biggest bag of the entire event while I was sight fishing. He did exactly what he was supposed to do while he was sight fishing and smashed them. And my guy on day 3 did none of that, sat in the bottom of the boat and never hardly made a cast. And I was like, hey, you do realize this is my guy threw out here in the same areas and smashed them. He didn't want to do that. His expectation of fishing that day was different. I bring that up because this also happened on another tournament. It was on Grand Lake. And I'm giving you examples of the mentality and the expectation. And I'm having this guy on my channel. He's been on it. He practiced with me on Grand Lake. So he was in all those Grand Lake videos. His name's Stephen Metter. I'm giving him a shout out. I got to tell you the story. So at Grand Lake a couple years ago, the first time I ever went, it was a sight fishing derby. I mean, it was a sight fishing banana. Everyone in the top 10 was in sight fishing. Both my guys, day 1 and day 2, 0. They never caught a fish. Day 3, I draw him and I tell him, I said, I think I'm in 3rd, he's in 3rd. I said, hey man, it's gonna be tough out there. You know, none of my guys have really caught him, but I think he's like, don't worry about it. And I was like, okay man, I know you're not worried, but like, so, and he goes, no dude, I ain't, you do your thing, don't even worry about me, I'll be all right, I'll catch him. And I was going, all right. And I was so, he was just like, I'll catch him, no big deal. And it was the confidence in him that I was like, cool. His expectation was he wasn't worried about what I was going to do. He was going to catch him. He knew he was. We went out there that day, and I had my doubts. I'm not going to lie. I've told him this 1,000 times. Me and him are good friends. And he was culling before I even had a limit. And I was looking back there, just shaking my head, smiling. It didn't matter to me what he was doing. I was sight fishing. He was back there just catching them left and right. Caught him all day long. He wasn't worried about that my 2 guys before me had 0. He wasn't worried that I was going to sight fish. He actually moved up a spot and finished 2nd in the event. He's actually won 2 more times on the Coingler side. So he wins tournaments all the time. But my point is his expectation was all right. He wasn't going in there with this mindset that was, oh, you're sight fishing, it's going to be horrible, I'm not going to catch him. He went in there going, oh yeah, that's cool, I'll catch him no matter what you're doing. He always tells me, we always get into it, that he knew I was going to be around a bunch of fish because I'm in the top 10. He's like, man, I know that you're fishing for 10% of the fish that are shallow. All the rest of them are a cast away. They're all trying to get shallow. He wasn't worried about it. He fished another tournament this year as a co-angler, and they were all up there shallow. His guy was out there fishing like a lot of guys would want. This guy was out there deep, had anywhere to cast to, whatever. Wasn't casting around any fish. He didn't hardly catch anything. Neither one of them did, because even though he was able to cast freely wherever he wanted to, and they moved at a nice speed, it wasn't any good. There weren't any fish around him. So just because it feels like you're fishing the right way, or fishing in a good manner, that you're going speed, you can throw here, you can throw there, your boater's not blocking you from anywhere, doesn't mean you're going to catch them any better. You might not be around any fish. So there's so many of these things to think about, and your expectation has to be this. I know I've talked to Brian New and some of these guys. They treat every day differently. They almost throw away everything they did before. They understand they're going to get a guy who's going to fish way different, and your goal is to sit there and figure out how to catch him behind that guy doing whatever he can do. The guys that are really good at coing, that fish the coingler side, that's what they do. And I'm going to tell you, their expectation, and the best ones I've ever seen that have fished with me, turn their head around. They couldn't tell you how I probably caught a fish. Now, some of them want to learn what I'm doing and see what I'm doing. But other ones, they turn their head, they throw in the opposite direction. They don't even care where I'm casting. They're just trying to figure out what they look in the back of the boat, and they see what they see, right? And so they don't worry about what I'm doing. I would say probably the ones that do the worst with me are the ones that try to copy what I'm doing. It usually never works out. And it's, the guys that do the best do good at what they're good at. and they try to catch a totally different fish, but their expectations going into it are that way. So that's my number one thing is to go into it with you don't have to have these high expectations of catching them, but don't go into the tournament going, oh, I know what that guy does, or oh, we're going to be doing this, I'm not going to catch him. That's not the right way. And your expectations, you know, if you're going there to learn something. If you're going there to try to win the event, and I know everyone's trying to win the event, don't get me wrong, but some guys are so hell-bent on winning that they lose track of everything else going on. They get frustrated, and sometimes you just like, hey, sometimes 9 or 10 pounds, you survive a day and you can still go win the next day, you know. So you're just trying to kind of like smash on them when you can and survive on the other days you can't, because you're at the mercy of the draw and where they go. The frustration part, the frustration kind of leads into the, you know, comes in the result of the expectations. You're going to get bad draws, 1,000%. Anytime you fish these, you're going to get bad draws, whether the guy's a jerk, whether the guy's not around fish. I bet you a lot of times what people don't like how I fish is the style I fish. I fish very fast. I tell people I fish fast, and until they've been with me at times, they're like, that guy fishes faster than everyone I know. Not all the time, just certain aspects of what I do, it's better to go fast. Well, I would say most guys aren't used to going that fast. I'm not a guy, I will do it, but I rarely sit in one spot and just make casts. I'm a guy who pattern fishes more times than not, if there's a pattern, and I go run that pattern. So I'm driving all over the lake. I got the trolling motor on 7. I'm usually flying down the bank. I do all those things. Now, first, granted, sight fishing, I do the opposite of that. I sit and fish for fish, but I rarely fish for them very long. But when I'm looking for them, I go down the bank very fast. So you just have to kind of adjust. And so I'll kind of do a little bit of everything. What I rarely do is go down the bank so close to the bank to where you don't have a cast. And I rarely sit out there in deep water to where you don't have a cast either. I rarely put my guys in situations that are detrimental. I've heard of guys going in down the bank where their motor's hitting the bottom, creating a dirt trail behind them, and the guy in the back of the boat has nowhere to cast. Like, I try not to do that. I don't fish that way. I usually don't like that shallow of water. But those are frustrations. The frustrations of everything. I mean, and it doesn't matter if it's you're not catching them or the boater not catching them. That's where it would frustrate me, is not that a boater's catching them, it's that you're both not catching them and we're not trying to do anything different about it. I don't mind zeroing, but I'm gonna try 20 different things to zero. Like, I'm gonna keep moving, I'm gonna keep trying different things. So that's a tough one. The frustration part of having guys that didn't practice, like I said in the first video, guys that don't know the lake, guys that won't go take a chance and do something different. Those are frustrations. However, you signed up for it, just like we did, right? Like when there's flooding and everything, we signed up for it, and then all of a sudden it floods and it changes everything we're doing. You still got to make the best out of it. So even though your guy might not be around fish, or he doesn't know if he's around fish, you got to expect that you are around some and you're just trying to catch one, right? Just trying to catch one. Any way you can, just try to catch one. Those guys that are really succeed figure out how to get one, and once they get one, their whole mindset is, how do I get another one? I mean, they're not worried about how they catch it. They'll throw 20 different rods out there. They'll do whatever they think they need to do to catch one more. The frustrated guys, they get frustrated, they don't care, they're so mad at their boater that they lose focus on what they're trying to do. The positive guys, the guys are always positive. They stick with what they're good at. I remember my guy on day 3 would try to throw what I was throwing, and I heard him say, just stick to what you're good at. And he did catch big bass of the entire event doing what I was doing, but he went back and still caught another one. He only caught two, but his second one was doing what he had been doing. So I say all that is because it's easy to lose focus of that. So stay focused, keep doing what you're good at, keep just trying to catch one more fish, because in all reality, most of these tournaments, especially the multi-day events, I'm always just usually trying to catch one more and one more. Once I've kind of got it really dialed in, that's when I start like really plugging away. But for the most part, man, y'all have a tough job. Guys, I don't want y'all's job. I don't want to do what y'all are doing. I've said it 1,000 times, I would probably be maybe the worst co-angler ever, because my mindset sometimes tends to be the front of the boat in a style of fishing I want to do, and I give a ton of credit to the guys that can sit back there, not worry about what y'all are doing, and do their own thing and still catch them. I'm amazed sometimes, like blows me away. Couldn't do it. So that's what I kind of wanted to bring to y'all. Like I said, I'm gonna have some of these guys on my channel to talk about some of their experiences. These expectations are tough, because my expectation as a boater and is different from other boaters' expectations. Like I'm usually pretty carefree about my boat. It's a tool for me. I'm not worried about if you trample a bunch of mud in here, and you know, like I'm really laid back on my boat. You can pretty much do anything you want to. It's a tool for me. It's not a piece of equipment that I don't want to use. Like I'm here to use it to get a job done. So I'm pretty laid back about that. I'm pretty laid back about how we fish. You can ask me questions. I usually don't talk a lot out on the water, and a lot of that is because my mind's going like this constantly, like every second, like it never stops. I'm always thinking. I'm always trying to figure out what the next bite means, where I'm going next, how long I want to stay here. So I rarely get into a lot of talking conversations. However, you can ask me questions and I'll talk to you about it. Some of the questions don't ever come up in my head. I have to be asked. So I'm sometimes very quiet. I also don't view this as a guide trip or a way to, like, it's not that it's not fun, right? It's just I'm looking at it as a job and not so much as fun. I have fun when I'm catching them. It's a job when I'm not. And so like I'm always trying, like I've got a job to do. So a lot of times, and there's certain situations where if I'm not moving very fast and I'm like kind of just chilled out, like fishing real slow, I'm more apt to like have conversations and kind of just chill out, like, because the bite's slow. But if it's a moving deal, man, I'm on the go. That's kind of something to be mindful of when fishing with certain people or certain things like that. So man, it's just a tough deal, man. You got to think about it. Two strangers meeting for the first time, getting in a boat, going fishing for the day. It's kind of, you know, it's not normal to a degree. There's a lot of give and take on this, but you gotta have to go into it with a very, very open mind, guys. Like the best guys, and I'm not saying they're better fishermen, the guys who succeed more go into it with a very fresh, open mind. Their expectations are not limited. They're all over the, like they don't really even have any. They're just like they're out there to do something really good, and they don't let the frustration parts enter in, because it is frustrating. Even the really good ones will get frustrated, but you have to throw it away. You have to like block it off as good as possible. And it's kind of like some guys getting arguments on the water. I'm really good about putting blinders on about that, and it doesn't affect me. Like some of those guys are like flustered for the rest of the day. I rarely ever get like that. I try to maintain a very level head, right? I don't try to have highs and lows. I try to have it all the same. I just think that's a better way to fish, and that way you're not all over the place getting mad, cussing, yelling, throwing your rods in the water like some guys do, yelling over there because you lost a fish. I don't have time to yell. If I lost a fish, I can make another cast and catch another one. So like I said, these are the things that hopefully will help y'all out. If y'all, the more comments y'all leave, the more questions y'all ask, I'll be able to do more on this subject, like overall. I know I'm going to get into it about casting, like where should I cast, where shouldn't I cast, what. Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really even want to do this one. I'm gonna try to do as best I can. I know I'll get 1,000 comments from people saying that I'm wrong about certain things, and they'll bring up some scenario. Well, I can't cover the million scenarios that are out there. I'm trying to give general, broad statements about the deal. So that's something I'll bring up. And like I said, these are all broad. There's always a scenario that might be different that I'm not exactly talking about. So if I say, you know, if I explain certain situations, sometimes in their head they have an experience. Well, I haven't witnessed their experience, so I can't comment specifically on that. I'm trying to give a little bit broader observations. So don't hold me to exactly everything as this is 100%. This has to be true. I'm just trying to give you the best way I know how to go into these tournaments. So anyways, stay tuned for the next one, man. I'm able to do the next video pretty quick. So especially if I get a bunch of comments from the first one or from this one, I'll try to bust out that third episode pretty soon. Anyways, hope this helps, guys. See y'all.